The challenge. The message arrived on a quiet Tuesday morning, transmitted directly to Earth's United Defense Council headquarters in Geneva. The holographic seal of the Galactic Combat Federation sparkled in the air, its crystalline pattern casting rainbow reflections across the faces of humanity's highest-ranking military leaders. Admiral James Wong read the invitation twice, his weathered features revealing nothing of the storm brewing in his mind. "They're mocking us," General Rivera said, breaking the tense silence. "First contact was barely 5 years ago, and now they want us to participate in their combat tournament. This is their way of putting humanity in its place." Lieutenant Sarah Chen stood at attention near the back of the room, trying to maintain her composure despite her heart hammering against her ribs. As Earth's leading test pilot for the experimental nano-augmentation program, she had been summoned to this meeting without explanation. Now, watching the hologram rotate slowly in the air, she understood why. "Perhaps," Admiral Wong replied, his voice carrying the weight of 2 decades of leadership. "But it's also the first invitation Earth has received to participate in any galactic event. We can't afford to decline." He turned to face Sarah, his dark eyes studying her with careful consideration. "Lieutenant Chen, your latest test results with the nano-augmentation system are unprecedented. How do you feel about representing humanity on an intergalactic stage?" Sarah felt the eyes of every military leader in the room fix upon her. At 32, she was younger than most of her peers, her slight frame and quiet demeanor often causing others to underestimate her. But beneath her calm exterior lay thousands of hours of training, enhanced by cutting-edge technology that had become as much a part of her as her own nervous system. "I would be honored, sir," she answered, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what was being asked. "Though I suspect our alien neighbors won't be expecting much from us." A hint of a smile crossed the Admiral's face. "That, Lieutenant, may be our greatest advantage." The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of preparation. The tournament would be held on Nexus Station, a massive space station that served as neutral ground for dozens of spacefaring civilizations. Sarah spent every waking moment training, pushing the limits of her nano-augmented reflexes while studying what little data Earth had on alien combat techniques. The day of departure arrived too quickly and not soon enough. As Sarah stood in the hangar bay of humanity's newest starship, the UES Endeavour, she couldn't help but feel the weight of responsibility settling onto her shoulders. This wasn't just about winning or losing anymore. It was about humanity's place in a vastly larger universe. "Lieutenant Chen," a voice called from behind her. She turned to find Dr. Elena Martinez, lead scientist of the nano-augmentation project, hurrying toward her with a small case in hand. "One last adjustment before you go." Sarah held out her arm as Elena opened the case, revealing a sleek medical interface. "The latest upgrade," Elena explained, connecting the device to the nearly invisible port at Sarah's wrist. "We've improved the neural response times by another 12%. It's not much, but out there," she paused, concern flickering across her features. "Out there, every microsecond could mean the difference between victory and defeat," Sarah finished, watching as the interface lights pulsed green, confirming the successful update. "Thank you, Elena, for everything." The journey to Nexus Station took 4 days, during which Sarah alternated between meditation and reviewing tournament protocols. The rules were surprisingly straightforward. No lethal force, no weapons beyond natural or cybernetic enhancements, and matches ended by submission or incapacitation. Simple in theory, but Sarah knew the reality would be far more complex. When Nexus Station finally appeared through the ship's viewport, Sarah's breath caught in her throat. The structure was massive, easily dwarfing anything humanity had ever built in space. Its spiral arms glowed with the light of 1,000,000 windows, while ships of all sizes and designs moved through carefully coordinated patterns around its central hub. The Endeavour docked in its assigned bay, one of the smallest vessels in a sea of alien ships. As Sarah prepared to disembark, Admiral Wong stopped her with a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Remember, Lieutenant, he said quietly. "They're expecting us to fail, to prove that humanity isn't ready for the galactic stage. Your job isn't just to fight. It's to show them that they're wrong about us. All of us." Sarah nodded, squaring her shoulders as the airlock cycled open. The moment she stepped onto Nexus Station, she was hit by a wave of sensory input. Her nano-augmented systems automatically adjusted, filtering the cacophony of alien languages and adjusting to the slightly higher gravity. Beings of all shapes and sizes moved through the bustling corridors, some floating, others walking on various numbers of limbs. A tall, silvery being approached, its movement so fluid it seemed to glide across the floor. "Earth representative," it said, its translator converting its harmonic tones into English. "I am Tournament Coordinator 6427. Please follow me to the registration area." As they moved through the station, Sarah caught snippets of conversation from other competitors and spectators. Most didn't bother to activate their translators, but those who did made their opinions clear. "A human. How quaint. I heard they've barely mastered fusion power. This should be entertaining, at least. How long do you think it will last in the first round?" Sarah kept her face neutral, but internally, she allowed herself a small smile. Let them underestimate her. Let them dismiss humanity as primitive and weak. She had trained for this moment, carried the hopes of her species with her into this alien arena. And soon, very soon, they would learn that humanity's greatest strength lay not in raw power or advanced technology, but in something far more dangerous: the ability to adapt, to learn, and to overcome any challenge placed before them. As they approached the registration area, a massive holoscreen displayed the tournament brackets. Hundreds of names scrolled past, representing the finest warriors from across the galaxy. Sarah's name appeared near the bottom, a small notation indicating Terra, Sol System, beside it. Tomorrow, the preliminary rounds would begin, and with them, humanity's first true test on the galactic stage. Sarah touched the small Earth insignia on her collar, feeling the weight of billions of hopes and dreams resting upon her shoulders. Whatever came next, she would face it with everything she had. Because she wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. She was fighting to prove that humanity deserved its place among the stars. And she intended to prove it in a way that no one in this vast station would ever forget. Hidden advantages. The preliminary arena loomed before Sarah, a massive geodesic dome whose transparent panels revealed the star-studded expanse of space beyond. Her first opponent, a towering Kraxan warrior named Vexithor, stood across from her, his crystalline exoskeleton gleaming under the arena's lights. The audience chambers surrounding them buzzed with anticipation, filled with representatives from 100 different species. "This match will determine advancement to the tournament proper," announced the officiator, a being composed entirely of shifting energy patterns. "Combat continues until submission or incapacitation. Begin." Vexithor wasted no time, charging forward with devastating speed. His crystalline arms morphed into razor-sharp blades, a natural adaptation of his species. Sarah's nano-augmented reflexes fired, time seemed to slow as her enhanced nervous system processed the attack. Instead of backing away, she moved toward him, ducking under his swing in a move that surprised both her opponent and the watching crowd. "Interesting," murmured a 6-armed Centaurian in the VIP box. "The human doesn't flee." Sarah's counter was swift and precise. She struck at the joints of Vexithor's exoskeleton, not with full force, but with carefully calibrated taps. Her nano-augments allowed her to analyze structural weaknesses in real time, each hit sending microscopic stress fractures through her opponent's natural armor. Vexithor roared, swinging both blade arms in a devastating cross pattern. Sarah flowed between them like water, her movements a fusion of ancient Tai Chi and bleeding-edge technology. The crowd's dismissive chatter had died down, replaced by intense observation. "Impossible." Vexithor growled as another precise strike sent cracks spreading across his shoulder joint. "Your species is too primitive for such accuracy." Sarah didn't waste breath responding. Her nano-augments were already adapting to the arena's slightly different gravity, adjusting her muscle responses microsecond by microsecond. She could feel the synthetic neurons firing alongside her natural ones, creating a hybrid grace that no amount of raw power could match. The fight ended 3 minutes later. Vexthor, his exoskeleton compromised by dozens of precision strikes, found himself unable to maintain his combat form. The crystalline blades retracted involuntarily, leaving him vulnerable. Sarah's final move, a perfectly timed sweep, followed by an immobilizing hold, forced his submission. Silence fell over the arena. Then, unexpectedly, a deep rumbling laugh echoed from the VIP section. An ancient draconid, its scales showing the metallic sheen of extreme age, leaned forward on its perch. "Well fought, daughter of Terra," it proclaimed, its translator rendering its growls into crisp English. "Perhaps we were hasty in our judgment." The preliminary rounds continued, and with each match, Sarah revealed more of humanity's hidden strengths. Against a hyperkinetic energy being, she demonstrated the adaptive nature of her nano-augments, matching its speed while conserving energy. When faced with a psychic warrior from the Pleiades, she showed how human consciousness, enhanced by technology, but maintaining its chaotic creativity, could be surprisingly resistant to mental manipulation. "The human is becoming a problem," muttered Kralkson, a legendary warrior from the Perseus arm, as he watched Sarah disable her fourth opponent. "She doesn't fight like the others." "No," agreed his companion, a cybernetically enhanced strategist from Rigel. "She fights like the universe itself, adapting, evolving, finding ways through seemingly impossible barriers. It's disturbing." Sarah was aware of the growing attention, but she remained focused on her mission. Between matches, she studied recordings of potential opponents, while her nano-augments processed and adapted to each new challenge. The technology wasn't just responding to her commands anymore. It was learning, growing, becoming something more than the sum of its parts. During her sixth match, against a warrior whose quantum-shifted body could exist in multiple locations simultaneously, Sarah demonstrated perhaps her most startling capability. As her opponent split into 3 identical forms, the crowd expected confusion or hesitation. Instead, Sarah's nano-augments calculated the minute energy differences between the quantum copies, allowing her to identify and target the original. "How?" demanded the quantum warrior after his defeat. "How did you know which was real?" Sarah helped him up, a gesture that caused murmurs among the spectators. "Human technology isn't about replacing our natural abilities," she explained. "It's about enhancing what we already have. Your quantum splitting was perfect, but the energy cost of maintaining it created subtle differences that my augments could detect." The response traveled quickly through the station. Human technology, dismissed as crude and primitive, was proving to be something else entirely. While other species developed their technology to overcome their limitations, humanity had created something that worked in harmony with their natural abilities, amplifying their inherent adaptability. As Sarah prepared for her next match, Admiral Wong visited her preparation chamber. "You're making waves out there, Lieutenant," he said, his usual stoic expression softened by pride. "The Galactic Combat Federation has received 16 formal requests for information about human enhancement technology." "They're beginning to understand, sir," Sarah replied, checking her augment's diagnostic readout. "We're not just here to compete. We're here to show them that humanity's approach to advancement is unique." The Admiral nodded, but his expression grew serious. "Be careful, Sarah. Success can be as dangerous as failure out here. Some of these species have been dominant for millennia. They don't take kindly to disruptions in the established order." As if to emphasize his point, the station's lighting flickered briefly. In Sarah's neural display, warning signals flashed. Her augments had detected an attempted intrusion. Subtle and sophisticated, but an attack nonetheless. Someone was trying to hack her enhancements. "They're scared," she realized, watching the augments automatically adapt their security protocols. Not of me, but of what I represent. Human potential. Exactly, Wong agreed. You've shown them that humanity isn't just catching up, we're charting our own course. And that makes us unpredictable. Sarah stood, rolling her shoulders as her augments completed their defensive adjustments. Then we should give them something else to think about, sir. Something to show them that humanity isn't just here to compete. Oh, Wong raised an eyebrow. And what's that? We're here to change the game entirely. As she walked toward the arena for her next match, Sarah could feel the weight of countless alien eyes upon her. But now, instead of dismissal, she sensed something else in their gaze. Recognition. Recognition that humanity, despite its youth among the stars, had brought something new to the galactic stage. The question was, would they embrace this change, or try to stamp it out before it could spread? The Coalition. In the shadowed recesses of Nexus Station's diplomatic quarter, 7 beings gathered in a room designed to block all forms of surveillance. They represented some of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy, and their presence together would have caused a diplomatic incident under normal circumstances. The human must be eliminated from the competition, declared Ambassador Vrel of the Arcturus hegemony, his crystalline form pulsing with dark energy. Her continued success threatens the established order. Agreed, hummed Queen Strategist Xterra of the Hive Collective, her insectoid mandibles clicking. But it must appear natural. The humans cannot suspect interference. Across the station, Sarah Chen was unaware of the meeting, focused instead on analyzing data from her latest match. Her nano-augments had recorded something troubling during the fight. Microscopic irregularities in the arena's gravity field that couldn't have been natural. Dr. Martinez, are you seeing this? Sarah transmitted the data back to Earth, where Elena was monitoring her progress. Yes, Elena's voice came through her secure neural link. The fluctuations are too precise to be accidental. Someone was trying to destabilize your augment's gravitational compensation. Sarah's suspicions were confirmed the next morning when she arrived for her quarterfinal match. Her opponent, a massive warrior from the Orion cluster named Kerix, seemed different from the others. His movements were too precise, his combat style too specifically tailored to counter human techniques. The match began, and immediately Sarah knew something was wrong. The arena's environmental controls were subtly off, creating zones of varying atmospheric pressure that played havoc with her movements. Kerix pressed his advantage, his attacks forcing her into these zones with devastating efficiency. Your species' rise ends here, human, Kerix growled, landing a blow that sent Sarah sliding across the arena floor. The crowd roared, sensing blood in the water. But Sarah had spent her entire career adapting to the unexpected. Her nano-augments were already analyzing the pressure variations, creating a 3-dimensional map of the manipulated environment. She didn't need to overcome the disadvantage. She needed to use it. Interesting theory, Sarah replied, rising slowly. She activated a secondary neural pathway that Elena had installed but never tested in combat. Pain lanced through her body as her augments pushed beyond their safety limits, but the result was worth it. Her movements became fluid, unpredictable, using the pressure differentials to enhance her speed rather than hinder it. Kerix's confident expression faltered as Sarah seemed to flicker around him, appearing in impossible positions. Each strike she landed was precisely calculated, targeting not just his physical vulnerabilities, but the predictable patterns in his fighting style. Impossible, he snarled, his attacks becoming increasingly desperate. We studied every record of human combat. This shouldn't be possible. That's humanity's secret, Sarah said, executing a move that used Kerix's own momentum to slam him into the arena floor. We don't just adapt, we evolve. The match ended with Kerix unconscious and Sarah standing victorious, but she took no pleasure in the win. Her augments had detected the subtle energy signatures of multiple high-level transmission devices in the VIP section. Someone had been feeding Kerix real-time combat data throughout the fight. Later, in her quarters, Sarah received an unexpected visitor. Alan, a retired champion from the Cygnus arm whose silver-scaled form rippled like liquid mercury, requested entry. "You're in danger, Sarah Chen," Alan said without preamble once the door sealed behind them. "There are those who see humanity's potential as a threat to their power. They've formed a coalition to ensure you fail." Sarah studied the alien warrior, her augments detecting no deception in Alan's biosignatures. "Why tell me this?" "Because I've seen this before." Alan's multiple eyes dimmed with memory. Promising species, rising too fast, suddenly experiencing accidents in the arena. I've watched civilizations lose their chance at greatness because they dared to challenge the status quo. And you think that's what's happening here? I know it is. The question is, what will you do about it? Sarah's response was interrupted by a priority alert from her augments. They had detected an attempt to access her quarters' life support systems. Someone was trying to replace her room's atmosphere with an unbreathable gas. Moving swiftly, Sarah activated her emergency protocols. "First, we survive," she said, grabbing her essential gear. "Then we prove that humanity won't be so easily eliminated." Alan's scales rippled with approval. "You'll need allies. Not all of us fear change." Over the next 12 hours, Sarah discovered just how deep the conspiracy ran. 3 more assassination attempts were thwarted only by her augments' constantly evolving security measures. But for each enemy that revealed themselves, an unexpected ally emerged. Zexri, a young warrior from the Pleiades who had faced Sarah in an earlier round, offered intelligence about the coalition's members. The ancient Draconid who had laughed at her first victory pledged protection within his species' diplomatic territory. Even some of the arena's maintenance crews, impressed by Sarah's respectful treatment of defeated opponents, passed along warnings about sabotage attempts. "They're afraid," Alin observed during their secure communications, "not just of losing, but of what you represent. Humanity's approach to technology, our rate of advancement. It challenges everything they believe about species development." "Then we need to show them something else," Sarah replied, formulating a plan. "Not just our strength or our technology, but what truly makes humanity different." She spent the night before her semifinal match, not just preparing for combat, but crafting a message. When she stepped into the arena the next day, she faced not just her opponent, but the entire coalition that sought to eliminate her. "You want to know what makes humanity dangerous?" She broadcast on an open channel as the match began. "It's not our technology or our adaptability or even our potential. It's our belief that advancement doesn't have to come at the cost of others. That the galaxy is big enough for all of us to grow, to evolve, to become more than we are." The coalition had tried to paint humanity as a threat. Instead, Sarah would show them a different path, one where cooperation could exist alongside competition, where advancement meant lifting others up rather than pushing them down. As she settled into her fighting stance, Sarah knew that the real battle wasn't just for victory in the tournament. It was for humanity's vision of what the galaxy could become. Betrayal and truth. The semifinal match had left Sarah victorious but troubled. Her opponent, a biotechnology specialist from the Andromeda galaxy, had fought with unusual desperation, as if driven by something beyond mere competition. In the aftermath, Sarah's nano-augments had detected traces of neural manipulation in the aliens' brain patterns. "They're not just participants," Sarah told Admiral Wong in a secure briefing room. "They're test subjects. This whole tournament is an experiment." Wong's expression darkened as he reviewed the data from Sarah's augments. The neural patterns match classified files we recovered from early first contact encounters. They're using the same technology that nearly infiltrated Earth's defense systems 3 years ago. The revelation hit Sarah like a physical blow. The tournament wasn't just about sport or even politics. It was about military intelligence. Each match was an opportunity to study different species' combat capabilities, weaknesses, and potential for technological advancement. "That's why they want me out," Sarah realized. Human nano-augmentation technology is something they can't easily counter or replicate. We're an unknown variable in their calculations. A soft chime interrupted their discussion. Tournament Coordinator 6427's holographic form materialized in the center of the room, its silvery features arranged in what passed for concern. Earth Representative. It said, "Your presence is requested by the Tournament Council." Immediately, Sarah exchanged a glance with Wong. They both knew this wasn't a routine summons. "I'll accompany you, Lieutenant," the Admiral said, but 6427's form flickered in denial. "The summons is for the competitor only," it stated. "Protocol is absolute in these matters." Sarah nodded slowly. "It's all right, sir. My augments are recording everything. If anything happens—" She left the sentence unfinished, but Wong understood. He'd receive every bit of data her systems collected. The council chamber was located in the heart of Nexus Station, a vast circular room whose walls displayed real-time views of distant galaxies. 12 beings sat in elevated positions around the chamber, their forms representing the most powerful civilizations in known space. Sarah Chen of Terra spoke, a being composed of pure energy, its voice resonating directly in her mind. "You have advanced further in this tournament than any expected. Further than any should have allowed." "I've competed fairly," Sarah replied, her augments working overtime to analyze every subtle energy signature in the room. Every victory was earned. "Oh, yes," purred a serpentine counselor, its scales shifting through impossible colors. "Earned through technology that should not exist. Your species has achieved in decades what others took millennia to develop. This cannot be permitted to continue." The truth of the tournament's purpose unfolded before her. It wasn't just about studying different species. It was about control. The dominant civilizations used these competitions to identify and neutralize potential threats before they could upset the galactic balance of power. "You fear us," Sarah said, the realization crystallizing in her mind. "Not because of what we are, but because of what we might become." Fear. The energy being's form pulsed with something like amusement. "We have shepherded the development of countless species across millions of years. We have preserved order and prevented the chaos of unrestricted advancement. What you call fear, we call responsibility." Sarah's augments suddenly flared warnings. Energy fields were activating around the chamber, cutting off escape routes. But they had made one critical mistake. They assumed her technology operated like theirs. "Humanity doesn't need shepherds," Sarah stated, as her augments began adapting to the energy fields. "We've learned from our mistakes, grown through our challenges. Every step forward has taught us not just about advancement, but about responsibility." "Pretty words," hissed the serpentine counselor. "But we've heard such promises before. Species that grow too quickly inevitably bring destruction. We offer you a choice. Withdraw from the tournament, accept oversight of human technological development, and Earth will be granted protected status within the galactic community." The offer was both generous and terrible. Protection meant control, oversight meant limitation. They were asking humanity to sacrifice its potential for security. Sarah's response came not in words but in action. Her augments, having analyzed the chamber's energy fields, executed a possibility that the Council had never considered. Instead of trying to break through the fields, she synchronized with them, creating a feedback loop that transformed the barrier into a communication medium. Suddenly, every being in the chamber received a direct feed of human historical data. Not just their achievements, but their failures, their recoveries, their endless capacity to learn and grow from disaster. They saw Earth's wars and its peace treaties, its environmental catastrophes and its restoration projects, its divisions and its unifications. "This is humanity," Sarah declared, standing firm as the data stream continued. "We don't advance despite our failures. We advance because of them. Each mistake teaches us. Each setback forces us to innovate. We don't need protection from our potential. We need allies who understand that true progress comes from facing challenges, not avoiding them." The chamber fell silent as the data stream ended. The energy fields flickered and died. Sarah stood before the council, her augments powered down to minimal levels, a deliberate show of trust. "You want to know if humanity is ready for the galactic stage?" she asked quietly. "Look at what we've shown you. We don't just adapt to survive. We adapt to understand. Every species in this chamber has something to teach us, and maybe we have something to teach you too." The council's response would determine not just the outcome of the tournament, but humanity's place in the galactic community. As Sarah waited for their decision, she knew that whatever came next, Earth had already achieved something unprecedented. They had forced the most powerful beings in the galaxy to confront their own limitations. Evolution's Edge. The finals of the Galactic Combat Tournament drew an unprecedented audience. Every viewing chamber in Nexus Station was filled to capacity, and quantum broadcasts carried the event to trillions of beings across the galaxy. But it wasn't just the prospect of combat that drew them. It was what this match represented. In one corner stood Apex 7, the tournament's defending champion for the past 3 centuries. The being was a marvel of bioengineering, created by the Council's finest scientists specifically to counter any fighting style in the galaxy. Its form shifted constantly, a swirling mass of adaptive tissue and quantum-linked particles. In the other corner stood Sarah Chen, the human who had forced the Council to question millennia of tradition. After her confrontation in the Council chamber, the tournament had transformed into something more than a simple competition. It had become a test case for humanity's philosophy of advancement. "This match will determine more than a champion," the ancient Draconid announced from the commentary box. "It will show us whether the old ways of controlled evolution must stand, or if it's time for the galaxy to embrace a new path." Sarah's nano-augments hummed with steady energy as she studied her opponent. The Council had been clever in their choice. Apex 7 wasn't just a fighter. It was the physical embodiment of their philosophy, controlled, predictable evolution guided by careful design. "Your technology is impressive, human." Apex 7's thoughts resonated directly in her mind. "But it was created through chaos and chance. I am the product of perfect design, of carefully guided development. How can your random adaptations hope to match that?" Sarah's response was calm, measured. "Because humanity's strength isn't in perfect design. It's in our imperfections, in our ability to turn disadvantages into advantages." The match began, and immediately the arena erupted into a display of combat unlike anything seen before. Apex 7's form flowed like liquid mercury, each movement a perfectly calculated response to Sarah's techniques. But Sarah wasn't fighting like before. Her style was completely new, developed in the scant hours since her confrontation with the Council. "Impossible," Apex 7 transmitted as Sarah evaded a quantum-shifted strike that should have been unavoidable. "My algorithms account for every known fighting style in the galaxy." "That's the difference," Sarah replied, her nano-augments adapting in real time, creating new neural pathways that had never existed before. "You were designed to counter known techniques. Humanity thrives on creating the unknown." The battle shifted into dimensions beyond physical combat. Apex 7's quantum processors launched cyber attacks against Sarah's augments, while simultaneously trying to manipulate the arena's environmental controls. But Sarah's systems weren't just defending. They were learning, evolving, finding patterns in chaos that even their creators hadn't anticipated. "You cannot win," Apex 7 declared, its form expanding to fill half the arena. "I am the pinnacle of directed evolution. Every move you make has been predicted, every strategy accounted for." Sarah's response came not in words but in action. Her augments had detected something in Apex 7's quantum structure, a pattern so subtle it was nearly impossible to spot. The champion's perfect design had created a perfect predictability. By following the Council's philosophy of controlled advancement, Apex 7 had developed a fundamental weakness. It couldn't truly adapt to the unprecedented. With this realization, Sarah executed a series of moves that seemed to make no tactical sense. Her actions appeared random, chaotic, almost desperate. Apex 7's predictive algorithms struggled to find patterns where none existed. For the first time in centuries, the champion faced something it couldn't categorize or counter. "What are you doing?" Apex 7's transmission carried genuine confusion. "This defies all combat logic." "It defies your logic," Sarah corrected, as her apparently random movements suddenly coalesced into a devastating combination. Human advancement isn't about following a predetermined path. It's about finding new paths where none existed before. The final sequence happened so quickly that many spectators missed it. Sarah's augments, working in perfect harmony with her natural instincts, created a cascade of quantum interference patterns that disrupted Apex 7's coherence. The champion's perfectly designed form couldn't maintain its structure against something its creators had never imagined possible. Apex 7 collapsed into its base form, its adaptive systems overwhelmed by the unpredictable nature of Sarah's attack. The arena fell silent as the defending champion, for the first time in 3 centuries, signaled submission. But Sarah wasn't finished. As she helped Apex 7 recover, she broadcasted openly to the watching galaxy. "This victory isn't just for Earth," she declared. "It's proof that true advancement comes not from controlling evolution, but from embracing its unpredictability. Humanity doesn't want to dominate the galaxy. We want to explore it, learn from it, grow with it. And maybe, just maybe, help it grow too." In the council chamber, the beings who had guided galactic development for millions of years faced a choice. Their carefully maintained system of controlled evolution had been challenged not just by humanity's victory, but by the way that victory was achieved. The energy being who had once dismissed humanity spoke first. Perhaps it resonated. "It is time for the shepherds to learn from the flock." Sarah's victory marked more than the end of a tournament. It marked the beginning of a new era in galactic history, one where advancement wasn't controlled from above, but emerged from the chaotic, beautiful process of natural evolution. Humanity had earned its place among the stars not by following the established path, but by daring to forge its own. As Sarah prepared to return to Earth, she carried with her not just a champion's title, but the knowledge that humanity's greatest strength lay not in their technology or their adaptability, but in their willingness to embrace the unknown, to learn from failure, and to share that learning with others. The galaxy would never be the same, and that perhaps was the greatest victory of all.